Welcome to the Game of Gymnastics podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Winston. It's good.
So today we've got a guest who I've trained with since 2013 at City Birmingham, but you've been all around the place.
Oh, yeah.
Been to America to train, been to Knots to train. I'll let you do the rest of your introductions, but here we have Hamish Carter.
Thank you. Yeah, so, we've known each other for, like you said, over 10 years now, trained together, watched you go from, small boy in GMAC, and then I've been away, but watched you transition into senior gymnastics, which has been great. So, I went to America, obviously, in 2019, and then following the end of my undergrad at University of Illinois, I moved back to Knots, where I originally started out. So I've come full circle, back to the gym that I was training at when I was 3 years old, and now 25, and back in my home club at the moment.
Nice. So you've been, like you said, you've been everywhere. So what would you say the main differences are between training here and there?
Wow. That's a huge question. College was an incredible transition into a world of gymnastics that I didn't know existed. I think, you've probably seen the NCAA online, or you've seen gymnasts, and all of the American Olympic team, I think bar one, maybe in history, have all sort of come through the NCAA system from all sorts of universities. I could be wrong, but from what I remember, generally they've all come through the college system. So the NCAA was like a different world that I didn't understand, I didn't know. I know that you competed like every weekend for 4 months of the year, at the start of the year. But the whole sort of team ethos and aspect, gymnastics is an individual sport, but going to college made me realize that it's a team sport in a weird sort of dynamic where you're only up competing on your own. You don't interact with any other teammates directly, but all your scores pulled together as a team score, and they obviously there's a huge amount of team ethos and culture that surrounds that, and I really enjoyed it. It was initially quite difficult to transition in, which I've mentioned before to people. There's a huge amount of team culture and ethos that surrounds that system. It was initially a bit difficult to transition in because I spent all of my life being an individual, and yes, compete as a team with teammates, but there was a lot of things that in training was apparent that was not accepted, and it's not, it's things like if I messed up a routine at the start, like on my mount or whatever, and I just came off and was like, I'm going to start that again. It's like, no, you carry on. We're judging the routine. The routine goes into a score system, and that routine will count in our prediction towards the team on the weekend, that we predict that will compete. So one of my first routines, I did a floor routine, and I fell, and I basically scrapped it, and I'll start again. And my coach Dan said, no, you'll carry on, because we're all fighting for the place in lineup, for the weekend. So I quickly learned that, there's some things that don't go, and that definitely improved my whole approach purposefully towards my gymnastics, which I think that we should all, we could all benefit from, at the end of the day.
So you're saying that even if stuff doesn't go right in the training, even if it's like towards the start of the routine, you still get up and then do the rest of the routine.
And I guess the whole point of that is, it sounds obvious, but in a competition, if you clip your legs on your shear and you stop dead on the pommel, you don't get a restart. You just got to carry on with a fall. We all train with the purpose of doing that, but in training, when building up towards competition season, it's not relaxed. It's not like, okay, some routines, if you're doing a big skill, you need to go through a certain combination, then there might be some leniency towards that, but no, it's a really good thing. And like I said, it initially shocked me, and I had to get to grips with it, and I soon did, but it was definitely different,
Yeah, and you say you carried that forward into training back when you came back to Britain.
Yeah, exactly. I took a lot of what I learned from college, the core values of our team, which are probably similar to core values of most teams, most companies, but I learned to really embody them. And, one of the core values was fight. So if you're coming off, you stay on, you don't, if you're really coming off the pommel, for example, and you split your legs and you're literally in a tuck circle, sometimes it might be better just to come off to save deductions. But the principle of trying to stay on and fighting for the very last bit, once you take that principle and apply it to the rest of your gymnastics, in theory, it's, you'll do your best at all times, which again sounds obvious, but as a 21-year-old, I started to really learn that, you are really in control of a lot more than you think, and scrapping a whole routine because you've messed up at the start is not a good principle to train by.
Yeah, I get that. There would be an argument to be made that if you do mess up at the start of the routine, maybe it would be a good idea, so you've got the endurance to go through the whole routine.
Yeah.
And would you continue going through the rest of the routine, but then do another one to try and get all the way through?
Yeah. It's a great example where sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 routines that we would judge through the coaching staff, and actually some of the gymnasts would judge it too. They wouldn't count towards the score that would go into the system, but if you've got 2 judge routines on a routine day, and you've got maybe only 2 more opportunities throughout that week to prove your score and your worth, there might be times when, all right, you fell on that first routine, you've got another one. Then there's the discussion of, okay, do we reduce it? Do we try and just get a good solid hit here? And that was, from one routine for the next for me. Maybe in a competition lineup, if someone falls, there's also that sort of conversation that could be had. Okay, we need a solid routine now. Someone's just fallen, but we need to hit. We need that score in, so let's maybe reduce it. So the whole point of training in college for me was to try and replicate competition as much as possible in the training environment, which, it's a fantastic principle to live by.
In my training, I only know my personal experience, but when I've been training, Luke will often say, we train as if we're trying to compete. Yeah. But I've only ever really done that with the routine aspects of things, only when I put my hand up, that's when I do it like it's a competition.
Yeah.
But it seems more like the whole of training, the whole of the session is based around as if it was a competition. You would reduce like it was a competition.
Yeah.
You would I'm assuming warm up like it's a competition.
Yeah.
Every part of it is pretty much consistent.
Yeah.
So you just 100% ready, but also you put the scores out to qualify to line up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some days we'd have, team pommel, team P-bar, team high bar, where everyone who's able to compete that piece we'd go to the event, we'd start the warm-up, we'd do the warm-up, and then we'd have a proper lineup. Sometimes if the lineup is already sort of looking like it's not going to change, or it's, fairly consistent with the last competition, those 5 guys will go up on that piece, and one after another, they'll compete, and the coaches will judge, and the whole team's there by the side of the event, and they're screaming and shouting just like in a competition. And that was another massive difference of college. I was very fortunate to train with, 20 guys on a daily basis. So it was like being on a camp all the time. And that plus the energy of the college system, it was a big shock, definitely at the start, but it's so good, man. It's really, really beneficial. And you turn up on the competition day, and nothing's going to prepare you for the noise in some of those NCAA crowds, but you feel ready, and you feel like a really part of a team. And that's, I think, what I was missing leading up to that point in my life. I didn't know that I didn't have it, but I look back on college and it was amazing.
Yeah, because you always see like the American teams on TV, no matter what competition it is, they're always so energetic,
Yeah.
especially when they've like just smashed a routine. Like the celebrations are like compared to any other like any other country, it's another level. And I'm assuming that's like the NCAA is like the sort of precursor to that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember doing one of my first floor routines for the team, and it was a big routine. I started off with full punch, 2.5, double double. I think it's a similar sort of routine I competed at the commies in 2018, and I nailed it. And I just kind of walked off. Like I was tired. It was one of the first competitions of the year, but walked off, head down, sort of calm, collected. Okay, good. Got another routine, and I watch that video back like every now and then. I see the whole team screaming, shouting, bouncing up and down, and it must have communicated to them maybe that I wasn't happy with it, or I was discontent with my routine, or I could have done better, and that sort of energy will feed off each other. Fortunately, the whole team was counteract. I wasn't miserable with my routine. It's just probably not understanding that sort of environment. So it took me a few competitions to get into that, and energy was so important because guys, if you fall, they come off and they're straight back in the corral where all the other guys stand, and they're keeping the energy up. They're not letting anyone's head drop, because again, you communicate to your teammates that you failed and that you're internalizing it. Suddenly the next guy that goes up is feeling a bit shaky, instead of being energized with, okay, yeah, I've got a mistake to try and correct here, but I know that I've got the positivity of the team behind me, in a sense. So
Yeah, I feel like the only real competition I've ever sort of even half experienced that with is British teams.
yeah, exactly.
Like it's one of the most amazing competitions of the year just because you've got the team behind you, and it's the only real team competition you do in the year unless you do an international.
Yeah.
And it's honestly incredible because like you've just got the whole team behind you no matter what, and if you fall off, you have to keep the energy up. You have to remain positive for the good of the team. And yeah, it's just cool.
Yeah, definitely. The British teams was great too. We as a team at Notts, we were really excited. We knew we had a good team. We wanted to improve on last year's performance because we had guys injured. We had people not doing all pieces. So this year was a fun opportunity for us. And then getting there, seeing you guys on top form, seeing Leeds, squeaky clean as well. I actually felt like I was sort of back in college again a bit, that all the noise around here, seeing the other team compete in the corner of your eye and then seeing them all jump up and down. It's like, yeah, it was really good. Really good.
Yeah, I think always like the best, like for the past 2 years, we've had Josh last up on Pommel and Pommel's been our last piece. And it's like the amount of noise we make is insane just because he always smashes it and he always like goes through really clean. So yeah, that sort of energy is really cool to be around. And I think the only other time I've really experienced that is, like I said, an international, being Junior Worlds. I was on P-Bars, which was like a width of the arena away from where the audience were. Yeah. And I could hear George and Alex, George Atkins, Alex Cash, screaming at me when I was on the P-Bar final.
Yeah, you could hear that.
I could hear it in your routine. When I was in my routine, it was...
It's funny at times when you're so zoned into a routine, but there are moments that I think you could look back on and remember a voice. Like you can hear it from the crowd. I think that's interesting sometimes, especially like I remember in commies in 2018 in the high bar final, I could hear Dom shouting from the stands in the middle of my squat to handstand, and that's one of the only times I can remember it. Yeah, anyone saying anything, but how weird,
Yeah, I think that's the only time I've ever remembered anyone actually shouting, doing a routine. And it was from halfway across the arena. Like, I don't even know how, but yeah, they were just, I guess they were loud enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You mentioned that it was 4 months of the year that you do the NCAA. Mm-hmm. What sort of thing is the rest of the 8 months. How does that
Yeah.
then differ?
So it's January till April is the official competition season, and there's a period where your team, there are conferences in the US. So Illinois is in the Midwest, and it's in the Big Ten conference. So it's mainly states around there, and a few East Coast states. Stanford and Oklahoma, they're in a different conference. So at the beginning of the season, we compete against teams in our conference, and we basically rack up a tally with them. And then there's Big Tens. So that's regular season. That's the word I was looking for. Regular season is the competitions leading up to that in your conference. And then Big Ten championships is, for us, all of your teams in that conference compete against each other. It's almost like a Euros, and then the NCAA's is the Olympics or the World Championships. So you're competing in teams that are competitive, but in your sort of geographical field, I guess.
Right.
And then the NCAA's is everyone. So that takes you up until April. And then post-April, there's probably about a month of school left. So everyone sort of has to like knuckle back down with studies and get your finals done. And then summer is pretty fun, pretty exciting time where you're just learning skills, enjoying it. And then school will start again in August. And for a period of August to around, September, you're still on that skills phase, but you're sort of trying to implement that into a routine and push for an upgrade. And then around October, that's when we start actually, going for routines again. So the preparation, the routine out of the year, the routine phase is quite big. Because you've got 4 months where you compete, where you should be routine ready. And then for the last couple months of the end of the year, you're going back into that cycle again. So yeah, there's a huge amount of time that you are preparing routines for. But the summer was really fun. I mean, to have all the guys, enjoying the great weather in the summer in Illinois and just hanging out, having a good time. Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, and when you're going for a routine for like a team competition, do you try and go for like the big skills even if they are a little bit risky, or do you always go for routines that you can hit every time?
There's a balance, and I think you'll have experienced that with your gymnastics and your coach and communicating that if you've got an upgrade that you really want to push, maybe at the start of the year is the best time to do it, because it's not as pressurized. It's not as, you've got many more competitions to potentially make up a regular season title or a Big Ten. You want to be fit enough at the Big Ten championships and the NCAA's to hit that upgrade. So yeah, there was a few times in the start of the year where I was trying routines, skills that I needed to get some experience with. Because as you know, the first time you compete a brand new skill, that's really the beginning of putting it into the routine solidly. You've got to compete it once. You've got to compete for the first time at some point. So yeah, depending on where we were within the season, there was definitely discussions and communication about, okay, what are we going to try this skill? Are we going to push for this because it's valuable? We need it for the team score. But if it's going to detract from that and it's going to add too much risk, we're better off putting up a clean, slightly easier, more solid routine.
Yeah, I think every routine is balancing difficulty execution, as pretty much every gymnast knows. And with new skills, you kind of have to balance, what am I gaining, what am I losing? And in some cases, that will be risk of just falling.
Yeah.
But in other cases, that will be, what is a deduction I'll normally get for this skill? And I guess that's something you just got to weigh up.
Yeah, and this code is going to be even more important because we're going down to 8 skills. Suddenly, the difficulty is naturally just not going to be as high. So, as you know, with a more difficult routine, you've got more leeway with deductions that you could potentially take. Not that you'd want to, but now with 8 skills, reduced start value, that execution is going to be so important. So we're definitely going into a cycle where we're still going to see hard skills. We're still going to see, massive combinations, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the finals of Olympic Games or World Championships in this new code, if we'll see people actually change their routine in the final based on who's already competed, because I think that's like it brings in a tactic in gymnastics that we don't necessarily see as much. I know from the Bundesliga that people, the teams, correct me if I'm wrong if you know, but they put up a different guy depending on how they can maximize the difference of their opponents. So
as far as I'm aware, yeah,
yeah,
I know that Joe's done a lot of them. Joe
Yeah.
Jones, yeah, and he's you're always put up against someone else, so you have to. It's sort of like a head-to-head sort of thing, yeah, and the difference in your scores
translates to
points. Yeah, and whoever gets the most points at the end wins.
Yeah.
Very simple. But yeah, like the higher the difference, the more points you get. And I mean, I think it goes up to like 10 points, but you have to be like 5 marks ahead or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
So you only really get that if someone's royally screwed up a routine.
Yeah.
But yeah. And to go back to the other point, yeah, we're going down to 8 skills, and I think some people will sort of play it safe, and it is harder to put in a new skill because in this code, you've got 10 skills. The likelihood of you having like an A or a B is a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're replacing that with a D, for example, you go up 3 or 2/10. But now with 8 skills, you're going to have to be replacing C's and D's. So you'd have to go up to like an F or a G even. And those are naturally going to be more risky.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot harder to then sort of push for like the really, really big elements.
Yeah. We will have guys and girls. The girls is not really changing much, but anyway, you'll have guys pushing skills that they'll be able to do with essentially nothing off. And this is like the top tier, the world's best. They'll be doing those skills. Someone runs the 4-minute mile for the first time and then everyone else starts doing it. We will get that, but yeah, you're right. There's going to have to be a huge balance between maximizing E score as well as trying to maximize D score. I think it will suit a lot of gymnasts differently. I'm quite excited for the new code. I think that as a senior gymnast, I will definitely be relieved by the less load that an 8 skill routine requires than a 10. But also, me personally, I think that I stand a good chance of maximizing my E score because aesthetically, I know I'm a very clean, tight gymnast, and there'll be guys that will still have to, push the D score, particularly. Like I know I've got to increase my D score, but I know that I'm probably a bit safer on the E score. So that's my challenge for the next cycle, is maximize my D score, because I know I'm clean and I can execute gymnastics well, but my area to improve on is D score. There'll be some guys that will be the other way around, have massively difficult skills, but with less margin for error, they're going to have to work a bit harder at their E score. So it's going to be a clash between those sorts of characteristics for senior gymnasts.
Yeah, I think with 8 skills as well, you're going to have to worry less about getting through a routine, like the endurance side of things.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still going to be a factor, especially if you're pushing like hugely difficult skills. But I think with that being less of a factor, you can focus more solely on D score, E score, whatever suits you best.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an individual sport, so whatever that is will be individual to you as a gymnast.
Yeah.
And it can be different on different apparatus as well. Like if you've got like a really difficult pommel routine but you can't execute it well, then it's going to be different to that than if you've got a high bar routine with a couple of catches and a dismount. Like you're going to need to put a bit more difficulty in that. And especially with so many new releases and stuff, like you're going to have more an opportunity to put those sorts of releases in as well, and then increase your difficulty that way. So I think, yeah, it's it's different on different apparatus, and you just have to sort of weigh it up yourself.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, the dismounts is a nice way of encouraging difficulty as well, because they reduce the number of skills in a routine now, but they've also weighted dismounts comparatively more than last code. You know, there's the amount of requirement that you get is based on the value of the dismount. So is there an argument to say that a nice clean routine, saving energy, saving deductions, and then ending with a massive dismount, you know, like on high bar or on floor, for example, you know, it's going to be incredible. Some people will be, you know, points ahead of other guys based on a dismount, for example. You know, what's the avenue that people are going to go down? It's really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And like the difference between a D and a G dismount, this code and next code, like it's 3/10 this code because you get full requirement for the D and you get full requirement for the G. It's 5/10 this code, but next code is going up to 6/10 difference.
Yeah. With a stick bonus opportunity as well. In college, they have that. They have the stick bonus point. So you just 1/10, but it can sway routines. You know, if you have 3 to 5 dismounts stuck every team piece, suddenly that's in an ideal world, but you train for it, and that could add potentially 2.5 marks onto a team score. So yeah, definitely. I think it's a good thing. I think it's people are going to be trying to stick their dismounts anyway, but you know, it's just that extra bit of added excitement that I think we could definitely have. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know they've got that currently in Britain for like under 12s or something.
Oh,
like,
a stick
yeah,
bonus dismount.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think they've got it for like under 12, maybe under 14, but then it stops at under 16 because that's when you start going into like international gymnastics. Sometimes I know I personally am not great at sticking dismounts, but it would be a bit of a challenge to try and really push for it, and it would be something I do need to push anyway.
Yeah.
So
bit of extra incentive to do so. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Indeed.
Yeah, because you're getting an extra 10th added on to whatever your score is, and like it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do that over 5 pieces because pommel won't count, then you're 5/10 up, and the difference between like,
oh my God,
that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, that's like that could be podium, that could be 3rd place, that could be 6th place, that could be gold. Can you remember the score for 3rd?
I think the joint 4th was 36.33, and then 3rd was 13.7. So there's 0.033 between 1st and 3rd.
Wow. So if there's joint 1st, is it? I'm pretty only sure. 2nd medal. There was no 2nd medal. Okay, that's it. I keep forgetting how that works. If you get so a joint 1st and then 3rd.
Yes, joint 1st, 3rd, joint 4th, 6th.
What do you think about that? I mean, that's kind of tough. I mean,
it was very tough.
Yeah. Yeah. From your own personal, you know, missing out on that, but as a concept, do you think that should be the case? Like, do you think if 2 guys tie, they should get the gold medal and then there should be 2nd and 3rd? Or, I mean, there's probably a good logical argument for it, but it means that they're just trying to maintain 3 people on the podium. Why not give the 4th person the medal, you know? Like, they've done well enough, you know?
Yeah, true. To be fair, there was 2 of them. Yeah. So it would have been joint 1st, 2nd, then joint 3rd.
Yeah.
So
maybe they haven't made enough medals for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it is just to maintain the standings as they are. Yeah. Because if you are the 8th lowest score, you should be 8th place, and that's how it would.
Yeah. Yeah. Up. There you go. Yeah. That's right.
So yes, like I think that's the sort of logic behind it. But yeah, I mean, it very much stung that competition. Yeah, I bet it did. But looking back on it, I'm just happy I smashed up that routine out. And I was terrified for that routine. Like, I knew it doesn't matter. I'm lucky to have just gotten into this final. So I just got to go all out and put the best routine out there. But it was still terrifying. Yeah.
I mean, that was your first significant international competition. Yeah. So you'd done many before that.
That was my first major international. Yeah. I was a junior still, but
definitely. There's a difference between junior worlds and other internationals and like EOF and stuff. Like
Yeah.
They're a band above, and yeah, I imagine that's a great experience to look back on though, and take that into your senior career, because you should have some more of those
Yeah.
environments to compete in the future.
Yeah, especially considering I also messed up both my P-bar and my high bar. I messed up in the all-around final, and I got into the P-bar and high bar final from qualifications.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I need to go through these routines clean, just sort of prove to myself that I can on this stage.
Yeah, it got the job done. I mean, like you said, the difference between sixth and first was basically nothing. You know, yes, that puts you mathematically in sixth place, but you know that, you did a really good routine, and people know as well that there was not much in it. So it could have been anyone's game.
Yeah. And like, I've overthought that routine to death. Like, I've thought about every minute detail that I could have done better just to like get a medal or get something out of it more. But I was at 9.1 execution.
Oh yeah, that's very good.
Like, my understomach wasn't great. I had a 3/10 arm bend on that. So I'm like, if I'd only done a 1/10 arm bend, then I would have won.
If only, yeah.
Yeah. But there's no point in doing that because it's done. It's done. I just got to focus on the next thing and not making that mistake in future. Because if I don't make the mistake in the future, maybe I will get the result that I want.
Yeah, I mean, it's speaking of that sort of like thinking, I definitely struggled a lot throughout my junior career and college. Yeah, it did help me to sort of get rid of the focusing on the negative, because I try and communicate with guys at the gym now, and with the experience that I've got, it's good to try and pass on what I've learned. And there are times when you need to focus on the negative or the mistake to correct it, but you've got to take it in a positive approach. You've got to be unemotional and logical of, okay, how do I fix that error? Just like in a I guess like in a computer system, you're not going to get angry about it. You just got to go, okay, how do we bring this back? How do we fix it and then move forward? So yeah, so many times in a routine, I have just, even like routines I look back on and go, why did I do that? Why did I do that 3/10 hop on my double twist? That could have potentially got me a gold medal at the commies in the floor final. But that's just how it goes. I mean, maybe if I hadn't have done that then, I wouldn't have started to think about, focusing more on the positive. So yeah, you can look back on routines and say, I wish I'd never done that, but it really doesn't help unless you're taking a, unemotional approach to it. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, unless you're actually trying to physically make a change, it does nothing for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you are forced to come to terms with that. And I guess with you, doing so many competitions would help, because it's doing one, move on, go to the next, and you don't have that time to sort of dwell on it.
Yeah, exactly. And because it's not just for you as well, it's for the team. Not only pulling down the energy of the team by focusing on the negative, but you can't, it's not for you. If maybe if you have a bad routine, you want to focus on the negative, you want to have a strop or whatever, and you're the only one responsible for it, it's only going to impact you, then go ahead. Yeah, it's up to you, it's your choice. But in a moment where you've just messed up and you've got to bring it back, there's definitely no opportunity to focus on that if you're responsible for a collective score or your other your teammates. Yeah,
that's 100% true.
Definitely.
Yeah, so as we've discussed, we've just done British teams. That's the most recent competition we've both done. What's next for you?
Recently was just in Norway for a Scotland camp. Very relaxed, skills, fun time. I was with Cammy and Ruben and three of the Scottish girls, and it was sort of laying out the skills foundation for the summer. And then I'm looking forward to it, especially with, I have to learn some new skills too. So it's always fun to come off a comp prep and then get back into that nervous sort of feeling where you're chucking a release for the first time, or I felt like a little boy again learning skills recently. And then I've got a big period of time where I can focus on that. And then I've got there's the Northern Europeans in Ireland, which I'll I think there's qualifications stuff will be out soon for that. That will be in September. So a bit of time now to do some skills, but I mean, if we dial it back 8 weeks, September, August, July, you know, the routine prep's going to sort of start around the end of July again, which is a good enough amount of time, but that's my next focus. That's the next competition that I hope to qualify for. And then after that is the end of the code, you know, the end of the year. So it's just going to be back studying that. And I guess it will be a little bit easier given that I'll be on 10 skills, you know, as far as I can into the year. Whether or not a couple months more benefits me, you know, in a way that I'll really see, who knows. But yeah, the Northern Europeans is my next target, yeah.
You mentioned that you were like learning new skills and stuff for next code. What would you say, what specific skills are you working towards that are going to benefit you?
Yeah. It's different to most pieces, but floor, I'm trying to work on like double twist, double front combinations, you know, especially because there's a reduced amount of tumbles. Again, we're going to have to maximize D score and E score. How can I fit more difficulty or the same difficulty into less skills? You know, you've got to upgrade the skills. So floor, double twist, double front, that sort of stuff, full double pike. Pommels, I'm really just trying to nail my execution again and go back to maximizing that because I've got a good solid pommel routine with some reasonable skills. But I was speaking with Josh recently and, you know, we were sort of discussing, okay, what's my plan on pommels? And I think initially we just came to the conclusion of improve E-score because it's a piece where there are deductions are sort of constant, the opportunity for deductions anyway, a lot different to the likes of, you know, P-bars where skill, go to handstand, pause, settle yourself. Pommels is constantly moving. So that's my goal for that. Rings, smash strength, get the strength up there. Oh my God, it's going to be so difficult, but I mean, there'll be a lot of guys in that position too. The vault, continue just working on my Chenkos, improving that. There's a lot of inbuilt errors in that vault that I've been doing from over a long time. So currently stripping that back and sort of taking it, you know, back to basics again. P-bars, sort of similar to pommels. How can I just improve E-score? A few skills to learn. Was trying some double back full dismounts into the pit. Again, that incentive to do a huge dismount is big, but it is a big dismount. Quite scary.
Very big dismount.
And then high bar, I'm pushing my casinos. I'm going to bring Lukin back. And some squat halves, maybe if my back holds up. Should be all right. But, you know, I'm 25 now. Apparently that's old. So I've just got to be mindful of that. But then again, the reduced code is definitely something I'm looking forward to. A lot less impact and a bit more focused work. So, yeah.
You say that 25 is old, but for gymnastics, it's so weird because, like, different gymnasts all peak at different times and everything, and sometimes it's for a longer period of time, and it's weird because some people will be done by the time they're like 23, 24, but some people can go till like they're 30 and be completely fine and keep going. So I guess it's about, well, you never really know when you're going to peak until you're there.
Yeah.
Or like until you're actually coming down from it. But I guess it's just taking every opportunity you can while you're still healthy.
Yeah.
Really.
It's an important point that you bring up there, I think, because I remember Sam Oldham saying to me a number of years ago, I was coming back from the States and I was training at Knott's, and it was a time where I was, yes, a senior gymnast, but still in that transition period of getting into real senior gymnastics. And Sam has helped me a lot, throughout the years. And like I'm trying to pass on my experience, he's passed on a lot of experience to me. And he said that, there's no such thing as the prime age. It's not for everyone. I mean, you've got guys that peak as a junior, and then there's a bit of a lull, and then they sort of build back up into senior, and then they pop out in as a senior gymnast. And you go, there they are again. There are guys that sort of slow burners, take a while to get there, and then suddenly they're in a senior gymnast and they've just exceeded all expectations. that anyone's ever had of them. So yeah, people, for people out there, I know from my experience, being so focused on, oh, I haven't peaked yet, or like what even is my peak, or I haven't broken into that sort of senior bracket yet. Like it's everyone's on their own journey, and I think to focus on that, it for me anyway, it didn't help, just because I was focusing on the external factors and how do I improve myself based on the external world, which is it's not the right way to go about it. I had to focus on like my own journey and where that took me. It took me to the States. It took me back to my home club. I don't need to worry about what it looks like to anyone, or why aren't I at the level that I think I should be. The whole concept of have that prime age is, it doesn't exist. You just gotta, like you said, go about it your own way.
Yeah, and I think it's very easy to sort of compare yourself to other people because it is a competitive sport and it is very numbers oriented. So you get scores, you get given scores, and you get all around scores. You get you can do averages, you can do all that sort of stuff. And it's so easy to compare yourself to other people and where you think you should be if they're like your age or they specialize in the same piece as you, that sort of thing. But like you said, it is your own journey and you have to look at it not through other people, but through improving yourself, just slowly but surely. In some cases, sometimes it will be fast, sometimes it will be slow. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It'll be up and down, it'll be everywhere, it'll be sideways. But like you'll get injured, you'll have to recover from them, you'll have time out, you'll struggle with certain skills, you'll have mental blocks, there'll be these sort of obstacles in your way, and you just sort of have to weave around them.
Yeah, and obstacles that could be nothing to do with gymnastics, that's important to remember as well for anyone. I mean, your life, your gymnastics going up and down over the years, it could be, it could be personal issues, it could be struggles that you're having outside of the gym that's directly impacting it. So it's very hard to, looking back on the last couple of years I've had, it would be very hard for me to blame, any sort of, I would say, not making as much progress in the gym as I'd like, or falling back. It'd be very hard to blame that, given some of the experiences that I've had, because, they can be unrelated. Why would you blame if you've got a stressful exam period? I mean, you've been through school. I've done the same. Something's going to take a hit. So at some point, your gymnastics is going to have to take a bit of a back seat for you to finish your exams. How could you blame that when you're pursuing like an avenue that's also difficult?
Yeah, you can't do everything.
No, you can't. Yeah, and it's just important to recognize that sometimes you'll go up, you'll go down, but focusing on where you want to go and where you're headed is just the best way to go. If you're looking at other people and looking at other, guys, the Colombian kid on oh my God, the couple of them, and even juniors around the world. I mean, I look at them and go, wow, they're like, some of the skills they're doing, they're like light years ahead of me. And like, I wasn't even doing anything close to that when I was 16. But unless you're taking as positive from that, okay, fire me up a little bit. There's no point in punishing yourself for it. It's just someone else's different story, different life.
Yeah, there are positives and negatives to seeing other people doing better stuff than you, basically. Yes, it can knock you down. It can make you think, why am I not doing this? Why am I not as good as them, even though they're younger than me? And that it's easy for that to happen, but you can also use it as motivation. You can say, what if I tried to learn it? And sometimes that's what spurs you on to learn a skill that maybe isn't so normal as such, but could be perfect for you and perfect for your style of gymnastics as such.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, like, I don't even remember what compelled me to do a McCutts. Yeah. I don't remember. But I tried it and I learned it pretty quick. And then I turn around and suddenly so many people are doing McCutts now.
Yeah.
And it's just like sort of exploded
Yeah.
in popularity almost. And now people are doing like giant makuts and undersumi makuts is, I don't think I've seen anyone do it, but it's a G. And
Yeah, there's definitely someone out there that's
there's
done it. I
gonna
think I
be
remember
someone.
maybe a few years ago, someone will be able to pull it out, but I remember, I think it was a Chinese gymnast or a gymnast at an Asian Games did undersumi makuts, I think. But yeah, it's that whole thing of someone trying something new because they think it's impossible. I mean, makuts is not an impossible skill, but there are definitely skills out there like Miyachi on high bar, Brett Schneider. I remember when Brett Schneider first started doing double over the bar to catch, and as a younger junior gymnast, it did sort of seem impossible, but someone did it, and suddenly then someone else tries it, and then Miyachi does it straight, and it's like, and then he competes it, and then he does a Cassina and a Coleman after it too. So that standard of gymnastics that there is now compared to, I know the technology of the actual piece has changed too. The floor, Sergey and lots of other coaches, Marius Gurman from Scotland, Scotland coach, he was Kelvin Cham's coach, and up in Glasgow, he said like the floor that we're competing on now is just incredible, like so soft, it's amazing. And he was doing skills on layered carpets with like tough like rubber bungs in them, and still doing like very good gymnastics on that floor. So yeah, there's always going to be that helps, the change. But sometimes I see a video on Instagram of a junior or a senior doing something and I'm just blown away. Like, I cannot believe that they're doing it. But sure enough, someone else comes along, does it, then they're competing it, then they're winning a world medal with that skill or that routine. So it's just incredible.
Like, I'm sure pretty much every skill has started that way. Like, Cassina's definitely started that way. Like, the Italian gymnast doing it for the first time. And then suddenly every, like, high-level gymnast is doing Cassina, and, like, everyone in the world high bar finals doing a Cassina in their routine nowadays.
Yeah.
Like,
just become the standard, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A G, like there's a handful of Gs out there on, let alone on high bar on every piece. Like, if you put together all the Gs, there's probably not many. I don't take a guess and say, I mean, what would you guess? Maybe between 20 and 30 Gs?
I'd say
is that about right? Maybe?
I'd say on the higher end of that, because they've added a lot more this code.
Oh, yeah.
Like, undersumi makuts is G, undersumi Diam half is a G. Increased depth, they've increased Lukin, they've increased Winkler. Then obviously you've got Cassini, you've got Volstrom. You've got like loads of...
Is Volstrom, did it go up? Or is
I think it's a G.
It's definitely a G.
Well, I'm just saying that it is a G now.
Oh, it is, yeah.
I don't know if it has been an F or anything, but I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong.
That's a skill that I don't think I've ever seen competed consistently on, yes, by one gymnast, but on the world stage. Like, I can't even... That was one of those weird sort of like unicorn skills that it exists in the book, but no one does. And then I forget his name. Is he from Chinese Taipei? Yeah. But he comes out with a Cassina, connected Kachevs, and then a Volstrom from squat full, right?
He does Volstrom from squat full. That's late in routine as well. Yeah. He does squat half immediate Lukin. He does straight straddle connected. He does Cassina, and then he does squat full Volstrom.
I mean, it's basically like the hardest routine you could make. Remember Stickman?
Stickman high bar.
It's, we're getting to the point where people are like, okay, what's the next G combination that I have to put in? And it's like, oh, well, it's squat full Volstrom in, 6th and 7th skill. All right, like, that's insane. You do one skill and then you look to upgrade it with like a half turn or whatever it is on what piece, and it goes up by, one letter, and you're like, there's no point in me doing that.
Or even
I'm gonna lose that deduction.
Yeah, or even like off P bars, double front half are exactly the same.
Yeah,
like they're both E's, but like people will often do double front half just because it's easier to land.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like, I think it does make sense. But some people will be put off doing the half twist because, I mean, personally, I find double front half so much harder than
Really?
double front on, like, just doing a double front.
Do you turn into the bars or you turn away?
No, I just struggle to do, like, just twist.
Right,
really.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I just sort of get stuck. But I can do it off fast track. I can do it off, like, trampoline. Like, I can do the technique.
Yeah.
But just for some reason, I just get stuck off P-bar, sorry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, some people just won't bother because, like, if it's not any more, then why bother?
Yeah, why? And I do in one sense slightly disagree with the putting the, in this example, double front half and double front as the same value, because I think people start doing double front half. Yes, it's not a blind landing, so it's easier to stick, but it's technically a harder skill. I think you've got to get more technique right to do a double front half than you have to do for a double front. But as a sort of benefit, it's easier to stick. So if people get it right, then they're not only getting an increased value, an increased D score, but they're also not losing as much on steps. So once everyone starts doing that, to then reduce it, I just find a bit, it's almost like they're following, they're looking at the trend of all the gymnasts around the world and they go, okay, people are finding that too easy now. We've got to bring it down. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because there is added risk with a double front half compared to a double front. But when you perfect it and you do enough of that technique, you get the reward of being more likely to stick it. So, but it will be done, and that will be a D plus G plus
2/10.
2/10. Okay, so it doesn't have to be double somersault.
I don't think so. No,
right.
They just said flight to flight.
Flight to flight.
Or group 1 or 3 to flight. If it's at least a D to at least an E, you get 2/10.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We're going to see a lot more changes, but it's just interesting to see like how from cycle to cycle, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
What sort of random direction are we going to take? Are we going to come back to, I mean, I remember this code going from, which is something that I didn't necessarily agree with either from a personal point of view, because it meant that I had to work Kovac's and Coleman's and stuff, but taking out you can only have a maximum of 3 releases if you connect 2 of them. And the reason why I don't necessarily like that is because when you have an open code, at least, it's going to encourage a lot more individuality. Tin Serbic from Croatia is doing, did he get a gold medal at the Worlds? We got it in 2017. Do you remember that? Was that Montreal?
Vaguely.
It was the competition where Zonderland did a release and then went onto one arm.
One arm, yeah.
And I think someone will know, but I think he got a medal, and he did like 3 or 4 Kachevs or something, or 5, and I think that's amazing. It's not because it's easy for him necessarily that he's just doing those. He's just maximizing his own strengths, and I like that because no one else was doing a routine like him. And I remember when he first started doing that routine, it was like, wow, he's just doing every single Kachev under the sun, and he's earning medals for it. And then then there's the code change, and it's like, we don't like that, or that's not encouraged. And then everyone sort of starts doing the same routine anyway. It's generally got to be a Cassina. Now a Lukin is more than likely got to be in your routine from a connection of some sort, 2 Kachev, a squat full, a squat half, and then a massive dismount. So it does, in my opinion, it does sort of like narrow that individuality. I don't really like it.
I think last code did do that. And I think with this code, they are sort of trying to start, especially with high bar, trying to encourage people to do different sorts of releases, which I think is a good thing. And it does encourage people to be more creative and play to their strengths a bit more. But it is a huge change, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And it's going to change routines. It's going to change the game, really. Like every routine will now be different. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad, really. Because now, I mean, you can't like just look at a routine now and know exactly what it'll be worth, because you could see a skill that looks like ridiculously easy, but it could be worth a G. And it's like,
yeah, with a bit of connection in there somehow, and you're like, oh, well, how does a start value get up to that? Right, but he's studied the code, or he's maximized that, and definitely that will play to some, not just gymnasts but coaches' strengths too. Like coaches that know the code inside and out and that know the changes are going to be able to see the bigger picture of a piece and go, okay, we don't necessarily need to focus on these massively hard skills. Let's try and just do like a straight catch of into a ginger, because the top end of that is a straight catch of connected def potentially. So why don't we get you just working that slowly but surely, and we'll get you D plus a 10th connection, and then the upgrade of that, you're going to get D, G, 2. So what's that? G is 7/10, right? Yep. So that's 11, 13. That's a game-changing combination, isn't it?
On the other end, you can increase the straight catch of keep the ginger the same, and then you've got Luke and ginger. And that's also a GD.
Oh my God.
And that's another 13/10.
And then GG.
I mean, I don't know how many people are going to be doing that.
The thing about def, though, I think is, I've played around with it, like I said, but I don't think you need necessarily like the power of it. Once you've got to be very technically accurate, but if you did a Lucan and then just, imagine trying that. The first GG, so 14, 16. That's actually only 3/10 below the D. Well, either way, right? You'd get 2/10 for going Lucan ginger?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe that is an example where too much of an upgrade is probably is too risky. Yeah. Maybe, because you look at straight catch of def. That looks like a more achievable combination for 3/10 less. That's probably a lot less than 3/10 risk, compared to GG. So, yeah, maybe play around with those next week. I might speak to Josh, get some defs.
Giving you ideas.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely, like, you have to play to the game and you have to play to the code, but you do also have to play to your strengths. Like, if you're crap at gingers, then just don't do gingers. And try maybe Jaegers, because those are going up, or try Markelov. I don't
Wallstrom being a G now, suddenly Markelov gets downgraded this code, right? Because it was a D.
It was a D. It's already a C now, I think.
Yeah. So
I think it got downgraded last code, but then I think I might be wrong, but I remember just seeing it in that band, and I might have misread seeing a G there or not. I can't even remember. For Wallstrom.
I think you're right. I think you're correct. It's hard unless the Chinese Taipei gymnast, unless he has preempted an upgrade to a G, maybe, and he's doing it as an F to then get even more bonus in the next code. But I think it's a G.
It's the same bonus regardless, because it's a D to an F and D to a G are the same bonus, but you just get an extra 10th for the F versus a G.
Definitely worth looking at. Anything's worth looking at now. Like you said, if you don't think about a potential, unorthodox skill like a Wallstrom, that's fine, but you're never going to entertain it, and you never know. Like with your McCuts, you never know what could work for you, what could play to your strength. So the skills phase going into this period is going to be like really fun. What are we trying today? We're going to try some straight catch of defs, or we're going to try some Wallstroms. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I need to learn ginger. I've tried it twice now. I've landed on my head twice in the pit.
How do you find that? Because you didn't do it as a junior, did you?
No. Yeah. So literally, first time trying it was a couple of days ago. Yeah. So I did basically a Pike Arabian first time, nearly landed underneath the rings. It was terrible first day trying it. I just couldn't seem to get my feet up. It just felt so unnatural.
It feels wrong, doesn't it?
But then last time I tried it, which was Friday, I think. I was a lot closer, and I was pretty much like fingertips on the bar a couple times. So yeah, it felt a lot more natural the second time. Like, I think it was just because my body needed to get used to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
It's not a feeling that, if you go from straddle Kachev to straight Kachev, it's a little bit different in technique, but it's the same skill.
Yeah.
Even a Coleman from a Kovac, it's a full turn, but it's the last bit that's different. I remember doing King for the first time and it being like, why do I have all this rotation going back onto the bar and I've got to catch it? And if I miss that, I've got to like dive out of it. It's, it's definitely a weird feeling.
Yeah, it definitely is. But again, it's something that we need to work on. And Luke said to me, I can probably, like, unless you need like ridiculous amounts of power for the skill, I can probably do most skills on bar because I swing the bar pretty well.
Yeah, you do.
So I just got to try everything, really,
Yeah.
I think.
Give it a go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you'll join me in listening to the next one. And thank you for listening to the Game of Gymnastics podcast.
Cheers, mate.
Peace.